So yes, who am I? As Alex said, I am Nick Hehr. I am, first and foremost, an empathetic community member. And next, I am a front-end developer at a company called Namely. And I'm also a Disney fan. That's just kind of topical if you want to talk to me later about something. I'm a huge fan of the parks and movies. And I'm also a bouldering enthusiast, which I think it's pretty big here in Berlin and in Germany in general. But it's a lot of fun in New York as well, where I'm from. And if you haven't noticed yet, I have a pretty wicked mustache. Oh, is it not running? Oh no. Animation. Ah, there we go, hey. But important thing about this, it's not to be touched. You wouldn't believe how many times I've had to tell people that. Yeah. Jan knows what I'm talking about. So why do I care about what I'm speaking about today? Why do I care about empathy in general? And I care because my background is actually in psychology and a degree in leadership as well. So a lot around people and how people work together. It's very important to me. And as a part of my job professionally, I'm in constant collaboration with designers to make sure that their visual ideas get translated to the pages very efficiently and well. And also working with backend developers to make sure the data that they create on the API side comes to the front end and is communicated back and forth efficiently at the same time. And then I also love the community. This is one of the reasons I chose to keep working, and as soon as I started learning about web development and continue working in that community, because it's just so nice. And I love every part of the community. It's just so much fun for me. And then there's this very specific group of people who should care about this, about empathy in general, and that's everybody, seriously. But what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. If anyone saw Miles' talk at Reject.js, it's feeling with someone else, not for someone else. And it's a very widely talked about tool or resource for designers. And we'll talk about it a lot just as being empathetic for your users and feeling how they would feel and seeing the world through the eyes of someone else in order to create the best user experience for them. But how can we take this and apply it to how we work with other people? And how can we make our product so much better by doing this? Because we're so focused on tools these days and they're just wonderful, but how can we also focus on the people behind those tools? And that's kind of around where empathy, the other side of empathy comes from in this concept. And first, it came from using Twitter. I love Twitter. It's such a great resource. It's such a great medium for connecting with people and learning more about the community. But there's a lot of people out there. And it sometimes leads to some snap judgments because it's so easy to put your thoughts out there and just fire off a quick tweet into the ether that someone will read. And eventually, those someones create some kind of mob mentality that really just starts to bum me out. And I think it bums a lot of people out from going on Twitter, going online in general. And I think we can be a lot more careful and take a lot more care in order to make this a better experience for everyone. And so I kind of broke down the other side of empathy into 4 main tenets. And that comes down to context, constructive feedback, communication, and caring. And so I tell you all of this to give you some context about why I'm up here and what I'm speaking about, and why you all should care about what I'm speaking about. And so context is all these internal and external things that influence how we make decisions and how we take actions and how we affect others around us. And it relates to the other side of empathy mostly because you may have heard the term unopinionated frameworks or libraries or things like that. But no one is unopinionated. The fact that they chose to use small modules or framework is an opinion, or to structure something in one way or another is an opinion. There is no unopinionated opinions. And we all have biases from either they're conscious or unconscious. They come from somewhere, and it's important to recognize that, where they come from, when they happen, and remembering to listen. That's super key to getting context from anyone. If you want to get it, you have to listen. And in order to get that, sometimes you have to ask why. Why do we do all these things? Why does this happen? Why did you choose that structure over this structure, this framework over that framework? And by doing this, we can set the example for others and set the example for gaining context, encouraging it from others. And I do this at work, and we do this together using user stories when creating features or workflows. Has anyone heard of Gherkin before? Yes, raise your hands. Awesome. So Gherkin's pretty awesome, not just for testing, but for gaining context from the people you're working with. It captures the who, what, and why of a requirement in such a simple way. And it's not only trying to think of the users, but we also, our own biases influence the kind of Gherkin statements and that we make to recognize what a user or yourself would want. And we're all at this conference today. We all have opinions, biases, and it's important to remember context when we're going around today during breaks or at the parties or throughout the entire What the Fest. And when doing that, when you hear something that may differ from your own opinion, it's important to take a deep breath and then clear your mind of any of those biases. Recognize that they're there, but just try to push them aside for a second. Ask why. Remember, just be sincere about you want to know why they did this. And then listen. And through that, you might start gaining some constructive feedback. And now constructive feedback is very important, that word constructive. It's not criticism, it's not negative feedback, and being constructive is getting information that should help you move forward or improve. It's not meant to just say, this is what's wrong. It's supposed to say, this could be changed this way. And I'll go further into that. But first, how many of you all remember the golden rule? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Has anyone? Yeah? Well, somewhere between when we learned that in maybe primary school, kindergarten, and somewhere along the way through maybe middle school or secondary school, we tend to forget that. We don't really remember that rule when we're interacting with others as we get older and go into the workforce or interacting with other people in the community. And it's nice to remember not to say if you don't have anything nice to say, but in the context of empathy, I want to change it a little and say if you don't have anything constructive to say, don't say anything at all. And not just not saying something nice isn't good, but in the terms of getting good constructive feedback, we want to get constructive feedback. Saying, that's awesome, doesn't move it forward. And that's the important part about this tenet. It's moving something forward for the better to improve upon. And some say negative feedback can do that too. I mean, I go to Twitter sometimes, and I see people who have those snap judgments where it's just like, this is awful. And it's like, well, can you tell me why it's awful? Can you tell me more? And they say the negative tweets will help influence the designers or developers behind such a product. But good feedback, good constructive feedback takes more than 140 characters. I mean, and it's even less than that when you mention the company or the developers or the designers. And sometimes they agree, but they don't necessarily follow through, or we don't. And constructive feedback is, importantly, a mutually agreed upon event. It is set up with the expectations that you are getting feedback, that we're getting feedback, It's in an open space, not necessarily physically, but somewhere that someone can feel like they can remove themselves pretty simply. And it's also shared with context. We give our context behind our constructive feedback in order to help the others understand why we're giving it this way or what we're talking about. And a perfect situation for this, especially when working with others, is code reviews. Either if you do this at work or part of an open source project, code reviews are the perfect situation because they follow every part of that constructive feedback rules. It's intended to find mistakes and fix them and hope to improve, to push forward not just the quality of the software, but the developer skills as well. And you have that dedicated meeting or dedicated time to come together and go over someone else's project feature or code, and it's coming from everyone in the project, not just developers, but designers and managers, in hopes to give them an understanding of what's going on, and hopefully the questions they ask will help you improve your understanding of what you actually did. There are many times that we go through something and it works, but maybe we're not sure why, and their questions help us push forward and improve upon that. And that's all about encouraging constructive feedback. And we can do that in the open, too, in the community. And first and foremost, with a contributing.md. If anyone knows what that is, it's a pretty awesome little trick with GitHub that if you add this file to any repo, it'll automatically link any person opening an issue or a pull request to that contributing.md file and show them what it takes and what they're looking for when opening an issue, opening pull requests, submitting code. And some of my favorites have been Atom, the Atom project from GitHub. It's very thorough. It talks all about what they're looking for from issues, what they're looking for from code, style guides, and things like that. And it really helps delay the shallow constructive feedback that comes from pull requests or issues and helps push forward into the actual improvements that we want. And of course, I'm also a little biased for Hoodie. Hoodie is such a great project and has such a great contributing.md to help others understand. Even the READMEs are great contributing files, just in case people can't get to this up front. And this type of linking and medium is all about communication and how we communicate with people. And it's important to remember that communication is sharing information and ideas and feelings, especially in terms of empathy. If you're talking to someone, you're not necessarily communicating with them. You're just spitting ideas at them, and they're not taking them or sharing them if you have to remember to receive ideas in order to communicate. And it's how we interact with each other in general. And it's what we say, how we say it, and where we say it. Like I said before with the constructive feedback, it's in a dedicated space or area that people feel comfortable in. How we say it comes in the way we phrase things sometimes. I statements. They're great for giving constructive feedback because they're part of that context that we are giving. I noticed, or I've found before, that this plugin tends to be a little inaccessible. But for getting context, it's not fantastic. Oh, I don't do that way, or I don't see how you could possibly do that. But it's great for use statements, or why did you make that decision? Why did you choose this thing? But for giving constructive feedback, it's not. You picked the wrong plugin. You should change it. Or you chose the completely wrong coding style. You need to go fix it. And that's not pushing people forward into improving. And the mediums through which we communicate are very important too. And at work, we have several different platforms for communicating. In general, we have Slack. And I find Slack to be one of the best tools out there these days for communicating just in general and keeping in touch with people. Stand-ups, either on some kind of video chat or in person, is very nice for getting that face-to-face time, quick interactions, and finding out what's going on with someone. And recorded discussions that can be referenced later, GitHub issues, or some kind of Trello cards or issue tracker are great. and then some kind of long form or asynchronous communication that doesn't necessarily need to be triggered right away or answered right away. Email is fantastic for that. And remembering these mediums helps us get the right communication methods and helps us get the right return of information that we're expecting at the right time. And we can create communication too. One of the words that I hear a lot from people that is another bummer for me is sucks. I really don't like this because it eliminates any hope of improving upon anything. It's very negative. It doesn't push people forward and improving. And unless you're talking about something like DJ Roomba, I don't want to hear about something sucks. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help others. And when we're using these open channels when communicating with a community, Slack's great. Gitter, which is kind of a Slack alternative on top of GitHub. IRC's been around forever, and even GitHub issues are very important. Slack I particularly like because you can customize things to encourage better feedback and communication from your community. Recently, we added a little Slack bot that recognizes for things like sucks, and encouraging more descriptions and more feedback in relation to that. And anyone can do that, and it's very easy to do. You can add multiple integrations that fit with how you want the community to act and communicate with you. And taking the time to do that is all about caring. And taking the time to do any of this is all about caring. And caring is providing the needs of something and generally showing an interest in it. If we care about something, we're interested in it. We want to do something about it. And caring overall is sharing. It's listening, again, always listening and understanding. Like I said before, empathy is feeling and understanding with people, not for people. And it's such a minute detail, that one word, but it's super important. And showing how much you care. Do you care enough to write a blog post? To file an issue? How much time do you have? Can you send an email? Is there an email available? Can you record a screencast? That's great. There are such great tools out there to quickly record even a GIF or a full screencast that you can post to an issue or to a pull request for what you're doing. Or when you're submitting a pull request, do you have the time to go and actually fix the code if you know how to do it? If you think their code is unstructured or they're using the wrong module, do you care enough to take the time and change that, submit a pull request, and communicate with them to make sure that if you're using it, then you want it to be better, and show them how you can make it better. And then, very important to remember also, don't give in to the hate. It leads to the dark side. Yoda, man, he knew what he was talking about. It's such an important thing to remember. Stay positive, encourage positivity in the community. And part of that, and part of caring, putting time into something, comes into documentation. At least for me at work. I find it so important to remember this. Wikis, code comments, style guides, pattern libraries, readmes, any of these things can help either new developers or veteran developers reference old code, new code, and go through code reviews and get context from that right away, and speed up the process maybe. Any little thing that we can add to our projects will help tremendously. And then remember to make issues for documentation and keeping it up. And such a way of doing this helps exemplify caring. And another way to do that, even not at work but in the community, is mentoring. And mentoring is really interesting because you can have a mentor and a mentee at the same time. We're all at different stages in our skill set and in our skills in general. But do we remember starting out and how much maybe we wanted a mentor to learn from? And we could be that for a junior developer and have a senior developer ahead of us who can be our mentor still. Did you have a mentor when you started out? And how much did you want one? And did you want to learn? You can learn from having a mentor, or you learn from having a mentee. We saw earlier that teaching someone helps improve our understanding of a concept. It really helps push forward our understanding. And in order to start contributing these ideas, these tenets, to our companies, we can start just by listening for a day. Start small. Start listening, maybe not always having to voice an opinion, to voice a bias, and start applying these small examples that I talked about before, code reviews, using the right channels, using the right statements. Starting off small and then remaining open to sharing, remaining open to listening and asking why. And for some people, it sounds like too much work. To keep remembering this, to keep remembering that, oh, I have to remember to think about people, to care. Yes, that's so much work. And to them, I say, well, deal with it. Because by starting to apply empathy, to connect with others professionally at first, it leads us down this path to connecting with others personally. This is a small space and a small area to start out with. We all have something in common when we start out with working on the web, working with products, working with JavaScript. That's that small connection that can lead to bigger connections and understanding others. And for following up and following resources, one of my favorites and probably the first place I go to and suggest for others is a book called Practical Empathy. This leads to more general examples and more general research around working with others and using empathy that way, while my example is more specific to our industry and development and design. And I also like to collect resources as well, and recently, it used to be on my own website, but now I've decided to dedicate something else to that. So this went live yesterday. It's called theothersideofempathy.com, and just trying to gather empathy from around the web and share it with others, and give people a place to find new resources and keep up to date with any medium, podcasts, blog posts, research papers, videos. But it's also available while I was looking up this domain at moreempathy.online. So I really like that, and I think you can access it anywhere, and it describes what I'm trying to do and what I hope others can try to do. And I love hearing more about it, and it is open. It's on my GitHub, and you can also suggest resources that way or improvements to make this more accessible for others and more open. And that's about it. So thank you.